All right, welcome back to the shop. So I'm doing a video today on using the rear steer on the M1161, M1163 Growlers. I'm just going to show you on my 61 because the function and use is identical on either vehicle, so there's no sense in showing on the 63. So there's a few things that have to be done, prepare for using the rear steering. The first thing you have to do, you go back to the unit in the back. There should be a safety pin in here as long as you do put your safety pins in, which I recommend if you drive on the freeway or on the highway, that you do use those, because you could have issues with electronics. Electronics have problems. We all know that. There could be mechanical issues that might screw up. And the last thing you want is this thing fishtailing on you on the freeway or at high rates of speed. These are limited to 5 miles an hour while using the rear steering. So that shows you how squirrely it can get. My particular Growler, my transmission computer went bad, and I put an aftermarket transmission computer, and so now mine doesn't shut off at 5 miles an hour. And I can tell you, if I get over 5 miles an hour, this thing gets very unstable, very squirrely. So make sure that your system is working properly, and never use this thing above 5 miles an hour, because this thing will flip right over on you. It gets very squirrely. So anyways, there's a pin in the rear steer locks. You can see my rear steer locks didn't lock all the way, and I'm going to show you something in a minute relating to that. And I'll tell you why it's not locked all the way. So you take this pin out. There should be one on each side. It goes in this hole right here. I just put one in just so I didn't want to waste time here taking it off in the video. All right, so I got both the rear pins out. You want to make sure that you start the truck up, warm up the hydraulics, and then you also want to turn on your air compressor, and you want to build air. You want to have a full head of air because the rear locks are released by air pressure. Okay, so let me go ahead and start the truck. Turn on the compressor. I already have an air built up, so I'm just going to shut that off just so that in the video it doesn't turn on and make a bunch of noise. So here's the rear steer controller. This is the on-off switch. It's protected by this, safety cover. This is the center switch. So if you're driving along and your rear steering and you want it to get back to center right away without trying to use the joystick, kind of an emergency thing, or out of convenience, it's a momentary switch. You pull down for a second, it'll straighten right up. If you notice these lights flashing, it's like I'm getting a 1, and then I'm getting 4 flashes after that. It's also mirrored by this warning light on the dash. Let me show you what this is. So here's the rear steer fault codes. 1-4 is locks not engaged. Now when we were looking at the rear steer unit taking the locks out, you notice that my locks weren't engaged all the way. I don't know why that is. I think I just need to lubricate that back there a little bit, but I just left that on purpose so I could show you guys the fault code, so you see a fault code actuating. Now I'm going to get those to lock, and then I'll show you the basic fault code that comes on when you first start the truck. So I just messed with it a little bit. I got the locks to close all the way, and now my fault code has changed. It's 1-1. So if we look at the fault code list, 1-1, not in gear first or reverse. Okay, so right now the system's at rest and there's no fault codes. I have the engine running, I built air, so the air pressure's on. Put my foot on the brake, I'm going to put it in reverse. I'm going to open up the guard, flip the toggle switch on. I've got a green light indicating that everything's functioning correctly. And then now I can use my joystick to steer the wheels left and right. Now what happens if I take it out of reverse and I go to neutral, I'm going to get a fault code. And it's the 1-1 fault code that's telling me that I'm not in reverse or neutral. So if I go back to reverse, I still can't rear steer until I shut the system down and restart the system. And there I am, it's working again now. Now if you exceed 5 miles an hour, you're going to get another fault code. As soon as you get past 5 miles an hour, the system's going to center itself, the locks are going to engage, and it's not going to work again until you've slowed down below 5 miles an hour, you have the shifter in reverse or first, and you shut the system off, disarm it, and then rearm the system. And you're going to get a flashing light that's going to show a 1 and then a 2. So you're going to get 1 blink and then 2 blinks, and that's going to show that you have an overspeed. Okay, one other concern with the rear steer unit, you have to remember that the hydraulic pump, it's mounted on the bell housing on the left side of the bell housing. That hydraulic pump supplies oil for the main steering, the front steering, the rear steering, and also for the brake booster. So when you go to use your rear steer, if you're turning your front wheels and you're using your rear steer at the same time, sometimes you kind of run out of pressure, you run out of volume, I guess, and they'll steer really slow. So And that happens a lot because I go to steer and I'm steering left and I want to turn that rear steer to the left too, so I can make my turn real sharp, and they both kind of just slow way down. So when that happens, just kind of ease up on the front steering, hold that toggle to the left for your rear steering, and finish your rear steer turn. Get it turned all the way and then turn your steering wheel, because otherwise it'll just slow down like crazy and you'll get frustrated. You're gonna feel like it's not working. All right, so right now I'm in reverse. The rear steer's armed, it's ready to go, no fault lights. And as soon as I put it into park, in fact, let me steer the rear wheels a little bit. I'll put the camera back there, I'm gonna put it in park, and then you can see what happens automatically. Set the rear wheel centered up, and then you heard the air releasing from the air release ram. So as soon as I put it in park, the system disarmed itself. It centered the rear wheels, and then it also engaged the locks. I'll talk about how the locks lock in just a minute. I'll actually just go in the shop and show you guys on a unit that's on the floor. Okay, so right now the system's armed. I can steer the rear back and forth. And then I've steered all the way to the right. I decide, hey, I got to recenter real quick so the back end of my truck doesn't hit a tree that I'm driving by. So it recentered itself, and then I let go, and then I'm able to rearm it again. For some reason it does that. It'll reset the locks when it recenters, and I think that's just so that the system can verify it's centered. But then you go and you steer again, and the locks will release automatically, and it'll rear steer. Once in a while, for some reason, it will have a glitch where once you use the centering toggle switch, that the system doesn't work again. You'll get a code flashing, you have to disarm, you have to rearm. I'm assuming, I haven't really counted the flashes to see why it's doing that, but I'm assuming it's probably because the locks may have hung up. It's always a good idea to lubricate the locks where they slide. I'll show you that in the shop on a unit on the floor, and that way you can see how the system works. You'll be able to understand why maybe, you know, where to lubricate it to keep the system working properly. Put it in park, and now I have a fault code showing that it's not in reverse or neutral. To get it to work again, I have to go back, I have to shut the system off, I have to go back to reverse, and then I can re-energize the system, and it's going to work now. I go to park, I get my fault code, the locks are going to be locked now. I go to reverse, I don't have it. I can hit the centering button, I don't have it. I can try to steer it, it's just going to be hitting the locks, it won't steer. So I shut it off, rearm it, and it clears the code, and I'm ready to steer again. Alright, so here's a rear steer unit that hasn't been installed yet. This is where the right side tie rod goes to the right wheel. This is where the left side tie rod goes to the left wheel. This unit's mounted kind of up inside. You can see it if you open on the 61s, you can see it if you go back into the trunk area in the back and open the panel down at the bottom. You can see most of this from down there. Let me explain what's what. Here's the rear steer safety locks. For the system to, you know, to be able to be used, you need to remove these locks. I'll show you what those locks do in a second here. This ram here is an air ram, and that's why you have to have air built up in your tanks for the system to work. When the system goes to activate, it puts air in here to the rod end of the ram, puts air in there, and it sucks this rod in. When it sucks that rod in, you have this pivot shaft, and you have these locks. You have this lock on this side and this lock on this side, and it pivots at it and swings these locks up out of the way so that this right here can shuttle back and forth. So you have another ram that's inside here. You have the hydraulic lines, you've got this ram, and that's where the hydraulics actuate it side to side to make the system steer, you know, to the left or steer to the right. These locks just get in the way and interfere with this, so it can't be moved. That's how the lock system works. So you put air to here by turning the system on and having all the systems set correctly. The system will arm itself. It'll suck this rod in. It'll pivot these locks up out of the way here, and then this can go back and forth as you steer it. These two rams right here, these are just gas spring rams, and what these do, once the system has to lock, when the system goes to lock, either by a fault or by you turning the system off, the air valve closes, the air releases out of here, and then this is actually just a vent line. It's a static vent line. It just goes up high out of it so water can't get in. But it allows, once you get the air releases out of here, it allows this ram to open back up, or, you know, for the rod to come back out, actuating the locks back into place. That's what these do. These two gas springs, there's two of them. It takes the force of both of those to do it. These are fighting against this ram all the time, but the air pressure is enough to overcome these rams. As soon as you let the air out of that air ram, then these take over, and the gas pressure in these forces forces the rod out of that ram, and it closes the system, and it locks this in place. This thing right here, all this is just a switch. This switch tells the steer unit that the locks are either locked or they're not locked. It's kind of a weird switch to put on there. Usually you see some kind of a micro switch, but it's a switch that they use. These wires here, these are just coupled together. They just do that, if for transport or whatever. But when they unplug and they plug into the truck, these are just proximity, just like a proximity switch, or I forget what they call it, like a button type switch. And there's another rod back here that actuates, and it just tells the steering unit that I'm steered one way or the other, that the steering is moved one way or the other. It doesn't tell it how much it's moved. It just tells it, hey, I'm not centered. So when it goes to lock again, or you go to shut the system off, or you go to just put it back to self-centering, once everything centers back up, both these switches, the circuits are closed. It satisfies the computer saying, yes, we're centered. And then the air has come out of here. The air comes out of here so that the locks can lock. These gas pressure rods close it, and they lock the system. It's that simple. If your unit was welded up here by Gov Planet before they sold it, when they locked out the system so you couldn't use it, all they did was they just got a wire feeder and they just welded this down on both sides so that this lock couldn't open. So if that's the case and you're trying to use yours, you're always going to get that fault code, that your locks are locked, that it won't unlock. One thing to do when I was talking about lubrication, so that the system doesn't hang up a little bit. Now it's wintertime, we've had a lot of rain, and I need to lubricate mine and kind of clean it up a little bit. That's why it was sticking and it wasn't locking all the way down. So you have to grease this. That'll grease these on this pivot shaft, so one on each side. And then I also spray, depending on what you want to spray on there, like a dry film lubricant or some kind of a Teflon lubricant or anything like that. I don't recommend WD-40 because it's mostly water and it's going to dry. But find like a light spray on grease or dry film lubricant. Spray it around both sides of this. Spray it on here, and that's going to keep this thing sliding in and out easily. And that way your system will work quicker and it won't hang up at all. So here's a shot of, this is an 1163, and you can see here's that lock thing that's supposed to pivot out of the way this way when the system unlocks. And you can see how they welded it down to the actual steering tie rod anchor here that's anchored to the ram. So one thing that we'll do to make this system, to reactivate the system, we just grind this weld out of here, clean this up nice, and we'll lubricate everything, and then this will be able to swing up and down to unlock the system. All right, so just be very careful when using the rear steering. Follow the operator technical manuals and instructions on how to use the rear steering, when it's appropriate to use. The system will disarm itself and shut off at 5 miles an hour. So you definitely don't want to try to manipulate your truck so that you can do it at faster rates of speed. Like I said earlier, on mine, I have a different transmission computer and I can go faster than 5 miles an hour. It won't shut off by speed. But if I get over 5 miles an hour, it gets very squirrely. So the reason that they put the rear steering on these was so that they can get the vehicle in and out of the Osprey, especially with the trailer on it. They can make small corrections with the back end when they're going in and out of the aircraft. Another benefit of having the rear steering is also to get around small, tight areas, around a small obstacle. But that's all done at low speed. I use mine when I'm pulling in and out of the shop. I've used it off road just to get around little obstacles or something like that. But it's always very slow speed. All right, thanks for watching, and I really appreciate it when you guys comment or when you hit the like button. That really helps with YouTube's algorithms. It helps get my videos shared more. So please comment. Let me know about your rear steer system. If you've had problems with it, if you have questions about it, just comment to the video, and I will return your comment. And anyways, thanks for watching, and have a great day.